Time to talk some Raiders. How about this? Trent Brown, not a Raider anymore, back to the Patriots, quoted as saying, since I left New England, nothing has gone right for me. Las Vegas wasn't a good fit. I've worn a lot of jerseys in my life, but I've never been more proud than when I put on a Patriots jersey.
Well,
Trent Brown.
That's Guy. I'm John. Subscribe, like the page, check out the podcast below in the description. Here's what I will say, is that the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, under Gruden, I think viewed themselves as like this budding weird. It was like a startup, like this, they got a blank canvas once they traded everyone away. And then they pivoted to like a rehabilitation center, right? It's like, we're going to draft these high character guys, but we're going to go out and get Trent Brown, who everyone in the league was saying, Kyle wanted no part of paying him, gave him to Belichick with his classic, like, hey, we'll just give you a fourth for a rental and we'll use him to win a Super Bowl, and then I'm letting him walk. Both those guys were like, no part of – Gruden's like, don't worry. We'll give him, basically I think they gave him $37 million guaranteed, which was by far the most a right tackle had ever gotten. It might have been at the time the most a tackle had ever gotten. Now, obviously, these tackles have blown by that number. And Antonio Brown in the same little quote-unquote class. It was a disaster. Now, Antonio did not even make it to week one. That was a shit show from the jump. This one felt like, they're going to leave Colton Miller at left tackle. Trent Brown is like, he's making a lot of money, but he's huge. It's like, they're going to figure it out. He played in half the games in 2 years. And these comments, last year, it jumped the shark in weirdness. It was just Gruden was saying these comments. They don't know when he was going to come back. But they also always kind of like they kind of hedged their bet because they knew, he's one of their better players. They always wanted him to come back. It felt like in a weird way he kind of quit on them. Like, I don't even blame it. Some of this stuff was out of the Raiders' control once his actions of like, was he actually hurt? Was he kind of FU? But I do blame them for acquiring this player and not understanding, like, guys, this in the league, this guy is a red flag that Belichick feels comfortable with. But reading some of his contract with New England, it's very incentive-based. He had to take a pay cut to facilitate the trade. They have this crazy weight clause. He doesn't have to hit guy 380. Did you see that? If he's got to stay under 380.
They weigh him every day?
I don't know if it's every day, but maybe once a week. Big guys, Louis Riddick taught me this in the league, that big guys are inherently lazy. It's just you have more weight. It's harder to, like, there's a reason the center's the last guy up the basketball court. He's carrying dramatically more weight than the guy weighing 200 pounds. Shaquille O'Neal weighs, 320 pounds or whatever. He's heavier. It takes more energy to move. It's like you got to be careful with, like, my D tackle, he doesn't play hard every step. It's like, yeah, he weighs fucking 340 pounds. But
and by the way, what he does is more exhausting.
100%.
Hand fighting.
But it can manifest itself like there's a difference of like, I got to conserve some of my energy. I can't play like Aaron Donald every snap. And like, he's kind of wired to like not give a fuck. And that's where I think this guy exposed the Raiders. The Raiders didn't even flinch giving him this money. And he kind of put a clown suit on him because he proved why these other teams and the league said, do not pay that guy. How did they not know this? When they were doing a huge reset on the franchise.
So when I read that quote, I don't think, oh man, Trent Brown really exposed the Raiders for what I don't like the fact that Trent Brown didn't think the Raiders were the place for him, to me is more of a reflection of him than it is the Raiders, right? I've worn a lot of jerseys. You played for the Niners, you played for the Raiders, and you played for the Patriots. He played at Florida after 2 years at Georgia Military Institute. Okay, so he was a junior college player, went to Florida. Really, it's pretty incredible. You go from Georgia Military Institute, you play for the brands that this guy has put the jersey on for. You just go into, one day he's going to retire, you go into his den, he's going to have a Niner jersey, jerseys. A Florida jersey, a Patriots jersey, and a Raiders jersey. Like, that's pretty damn good. I would put those four up with any four that anybody puts up in there, right?
It's pretty cool. Yeah, and he's a Super Bowl champ.
And I guess if you're him, you tell yourself, Belichick loves me. It's like, yeah, Bill likes you when you're value, right? Bill thinks you are value because you're talented. So I don't read that and say the fact that it didn't work with Trent Brown is like another strike against the Raiders. I agree with you. I think this went the way most teams were afraid it would go. And most teams, two organizations that knew the guy, like the Patriots, got him again. They know him. So they set themselves up. They protected themselves when they acquired him. The Niners had him for 3 years. He was a 7th-round pick. Pretty talented. Big guy.
I think if we rewound it, think about this. Who drafted him in the 7th round? Trent Baalke. Where do human beings like this, a tackle who clearly has high-end talent from the SEC Florida last the 7th round? I'll tell you why. He was off. I bet if you and I knew all 32 GMs and sent out a group text, was Trent Brown on your draft board? I'd be shocked if minimum 20 plus said, yeah, we had him off the draft board. Trent Baalke, who has a little Gruden Al Davis in him, doesn't give a shit. He was not clearly off their draft board, where this guy is not a 7th-round player, right? No fucking chance. I actually think it's kind of reflective of, like, why were you in the 7th round? Well, I'll tell you, I bet his write-up from the scouts to their GMs and coaches was not glowing, right? Well, Trent overlooked that type of stuff. But then once you get him, you realize you just have the player and he's better than most. And then remember, like, Anthony Davis saga, and they just got a right tackle, and he was good. I mean, it wasn't like that to me is the sad part. And it's weird to say sad. I mean, this guy's made a ton of money. He's won a championship. He'd go sad. Like, I'm going to have an incredible career. But it's like, you're going to leave these marks throughout all these people. I don't think people are going to say glow. Like, if me and you were having beers with Gruden, I think he would not like Trent Brown at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, John, 20 teams, it might have been 25 teams, because he was the 26th pick of the 7th round.
I think it's very fair to say he was a non-draftable player for everyone, and it had nothing to do with ability, right? He's huge, and he was coming from Florida. I think it's more a reflection of, and this is what I'd say to John, like, I understand why you hate him. He basically just quit on you, and you just never knew, and he would just disappear. And even this year with Corona, remember, his deal was like he wasn't following the rules. But John, you should have known that when you gave him, I don't know, an astronomical amount of money. Like, that is like this gets back to, and sometimes our comments on YouTube is like, middle cop, you just hate them. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I talk about them. I profit off them. If they went to the playoffs, they can help us make more money, more listens, more views. It's just, you can't tell me that Gruden has some grand plan when he keeps doing stuff like this. Like, it's kind of crazy.
By the way, the 7th round from this draft, it's like, it was good. Austin Ryder,
yeah.
Washington took him, the center who Kansas City, I think they just re-signed him, didn't they? Or did they cut it? They just cut him. But he just started basically for 4 years for them.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he was on the Niners the last few years. The linebacker, it's like Nzeocha. Maybe it's Zocha. But I just recognize the name because he's played in the league for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Played in every, probably special teams, played in every Niner game in 18 and in 19.
That's impressive.
Jeff Swaim, the tight end who Dallas had, Swaim, again, been in the league.
Pretty
Denzel Good,
yeah,
from the Raiders. Who is the quarterback here? Trevor Siemian, 7th-round pick.
That's a fantastic 7th-round pick.
And then there's other guys who I'm sure have just, like here's a guy, I don't know anything about Edmund Robinson, but he played 13 games for the Falcons last year, been in the league 4 years.
So you're right. Like, this 7th round, I bet if we just did a deep dive of the last decade, 7th round, it's pretty impressive. You got guys playing in the league. Wouldn't you say Trent Brown is infinitely in a different world than all these other guys? Isn't it pretty crazy? Like, it's kind of reflective of his life and his career of like, bro, you don't belong. You belong in like the first.
Well,
you
here's an
belong
example.
to be a Pro Bowler. You belong to be a dominant player. This is where one thing I was really wrong on, having not like, and when you don't live and die with a story, you just kind of from the outside. I had a weird perception of Trent Williams. Maybe it was just like, yeah, Trent Williams from the Washington. I was like, something's off with that guy. Like, then he just quit and he was always angry. And it turns out, it was actually the Washington football team. They're all fucked up. It's not. Watching him this year, it's like pretty high level guy. Like, people like him. Like, I was wrong, but I don't know. And maybe it's just part of being in that franchise. But I would have said he was much more like a Trent Brown, but a better version. That's not the case at all. And I think Trent Brown, the story that surrounds him is much more accurate. That I think a lot of times maybe players would say, I got this false perception about me that's out there. It's not even true. I think it's very fair the way he's viewed.
Yeah. Darren Waller was taken in that 6th round, by the way.
God, this is a pretty good draft. What year is this? 16, 14, 15?
15. Jameis Mariotti draft. Stephon
Weird how
Diggs,
you define.
Quandre Diggs.
Good picks.